I'm Sarah, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be doing a recent reads video, and heads up ahead of time, I may not remember tons of details about all these books because I read all these like 2 months ago now, so sorry about that. But as always, there will be links to my Goodreads reviews down in the description, so if I miss anything to talk about or miss some details or whatever, or you want to see like content and stuff like that, you can refer to those reviews down below if any of these books interest you. And that said, we're just gonna jump into the first book. I don't have many to hold up either, so editing Sarah's gonna have fun. And the very first book I want to talk about is A Fated Quest by Selena R. Gonzalez. This is the third book in the Marigold Chronicles series, and it is a loose retelling. It's more inspired, I guess, by two fairy tales, which is The Golden Bird and Tarsevik, Ivan the Firebird, and the Grey Wolf. I don't know if both of these are Russian fairy tales. I have no idea. I'm assuming the last one is based on the the first word, which I may have butchered, so I apologize. Anyways, in this story, we follow Prince Gareth. He wants to be a knight. He just doesn't really care about being a prince. He just wants to go out and do good deeds and help people, but he really can't, being the prince, and then he and his father keep butting heads. So then his father finally gets fed up, and he sends him to be a knight on this, okay. So his father kind of gets fed up with his whole attitude and stuff like that. He's just like, fine, you want to be a knight so much? You can go to this manor along our border between our country and the next, or our kingdom and the next kingdom, and you can be a knight there. Nobody will know you're a prince, so on and so forth. So he's sent there, and it's pretty boring at first. Gareth doesn't really like it, and then the thing is, the Baron of this castle, he has like this rare firebird, and it gets stolen on Gareth's watch. Fun times. So Gareth assumes responsibility, and he's like, okay, I'll go get your bird back. So he has to cross the border into the next kingdom, and then he kind of gets entangled with this witch who's trying to get this prophecy to come true in this kingdom, and he also meets a talking fox named Leo, who's also tangled up in this whole thing, and a girl named Annika, who's also imprisoned, and things spiral out of control from there. This is a really good book, really fun book. I actually got an e-arc of this book, you know, way back when it was first coming out. So thank you to the author for giving me that. I really enjoyed this book. Maybe a little less than the first two books in the series, which are A Thieving Curse and A Lonely Dance. Out of all three of these, this one has the least amount of romance. It does have romance in it. Selena's known more for her like romance plots, more romantic type plots. This one has the least amount. It still has a romance. Gareth and Annika, I'm pretty sure that's how you say her name. They're really cute. I really enjoyed them. Yeah, and I really enjoyed Gareth. He's very much has a black and white sense of looking at the world. So he kind of has to he kind of has to reevaluate his thought processes and how he views other people, and maybe like he's a little too stringent and stuff on certain things. And there's like, yeah, there's black and white, but there's also shades of gray in between, and not everything's as clear cut as you want it to be. I really enjoyed watching his journey. Leo the talking fox, who you can see here, he is the best. He is a fox who likes philosophy, and he is just the utter best. His and Gareth's romance was really cracking me up. That is actually more prevalent than the romance, and I just adored it. I adore all of Selena's books, so this one is no exception. But yeah, just her character work is amazing. She writes such wonderful different characters in all these different books, and just like each one you look at them, you're like, yeah, that's this person, and yeah, I really, really enjoyed this book, and I gave it 5 stars. Okay, the next few books. Okay, we're going to be taking a downhill spike now. The next few books I'm going to be talking about are all, chapter books, children's chapter books, I guess you'd call them, novelizations of episodes in the Star Wars Rebels series, which is an animated TV series. And the very first one I read was Rise of the Rebels. I gave this one 3 stars. This one is a novelization of how many are there? 3? No, there's 4. 4 different short films, which I'm pretty sure you can still find on YouTube if you just type in Star Wars Rebels shorts. I think they still come up. But anyways, this book is the novelization of those, and I really enjoyed it. I gave it 3 stars. It has the same feel as the very first book in this series, which is The Rebellion Begins. That's it. Which was in my last recent reads video. I will leave that recent reads link down in the description so you can see me talk about that book if you're interested. But it had that same feel where it was very much expanded upon from the original shorts and very fleshed out, and I really enjoyed that one. Unfortunately, it went downhill from there. I read the next one, which is Droids in Distress. I gave this one 1 star. Yeah, this made absolutely no sense. The very first, 1 or 2 chapters was literally a recap of the very first 2 episodes of the series, which were already novelized in The Rebellion Begins. So we just got a really rushed recap, which is kind of stupid because The Rebellion Begins is the first book in this series, in this chapter book series, so why do we have this again? It made no sense. And then it was novelizing Droids in Distress, which is one of my least favorite episodes, and this one, it left none of the funny bits in. It was just literally bare bones, dialogue, occasional, they were doing something, but it left out parts, and I was really annoyed by that. And then, I forget, it did another one, I think it was Rise of the Old Masters. It also novelized, I'm pretty sure it was that one. If I'm incorrect, my review will probably tell you. But that one, I do like that episode, but again, butchered. It didn't even go into any details, so yeah, I didn't like that one either. Or that's in the next book. Details are fuzzy on this. Anyways, the next 2 books in this series, I only gave 2 stars. The very first one was Ezra's Duel with Danger. It was better than Droids in Distress in the fact that they had a little bit more, extra characterization and detail and stuff, but not to the level that The Rebellion Begins was in. These are all written by the same author, which is Michael Kogge, I believe is how you say his name. But, so I don't know what happened to the writing style after Rise of the Rebels and The Rebellion Begins, because it just went downhill from here. But anyways, it was just slightly better than Droids in Distress, which is why I gave it 2 stars. And then the very last book, which is Battle to the End, also gave it 2 stars. Had the same problem as Ezra's Duel with Danger, which is they gave you the episode novelized, but not further details. It was just literally you might as well just go watch the episodes because they're actually better and they include everything and have more characterization than what they have written down. Honestly, if you want to read if you really like Star Wars Rebels and you wanted to check out any of these books, I would honestly only recommend Rise of the Rebels and The Rebellion Begins. I would say don't bother with the rest of them because they're really not worth your time. Okay, and the next ones are also books that didn't work out for me. The very first one, this is the first 2 books in a series. It's an ongoing series as far as I know. It's they're fairy tale retellings. And the very first one is So It's a Quest by Kendra E. Ardnek. This one I gave 2 stars. I did finish this one. And this is, to be fair, this is the author's very first book. And it feels like it. But to be fair, so that aside, I'm not judging it based on this is her first book and it reads like it. I'm judging it based on, it was okay. Anyways, the whole premise is these 2 twins, Robin and Robert, they basically have fairy godmother gifts, but they were switched. So Robert has the gift of sewing really well, and Robin, who's the girl, and she has the gift of being really good at swordplay. And they're kind of, or at least, yeah, they're kind of we need to switch our gifts back and stuff like that. So, they're a little bit more I don't know, gender norm, so to speak. So, because Robin gets a lot of flack for being a swordmaster, and Robert gets a lot of flack for, being a guy and sewing really well. So, they decide to go on this quest to find their fairy godmother and have her switch their gifts back. And they meet a lot of different people along the way, and they have adventures, and that's pretty much it. But yes, yeah, this did several different fairy tales. The ones I remember clearly were Sleeping Beauty and Robin Hood. I think there were, might have had some Cinderella elements. I really don't remember how many fairy tales it was retelling. It was like, it was a different, interesting concept. I really like the concept of where it was like in this world where like fairy tales are like the history of the place, and some of them are happening right now, and the different ways that the author was taking fairy tales and fairy tale tropes and stuff like that. I really liked where she was going with it. The characters have much to be desired. Most of them were just there. Robin annoyed the heck out of me. She is one of those irritating, strong female brash type people, and I hate those characters typically because they're so mean, and I didn't like her. And unfortunately she was the main focus. So there was that, and then we got to this part where they find these people, this like castle in the woods and stuff, and they've been like from like 100 years ago or something like that. And then they start in this one character, they talk in really old English style with like, you know, these and thous and like different wording like that, which is fine, except this one character, she talked that way. And she also talked different, is in the fact of she used different words that weren't that meaning. Like, for example, prince, she would say quince and things like that. So she would switch words. Like, gold wouldn't be gold, it would be something else. And it was things like that where the idea was clever, but the problem is she talked too much. And I couldn't ever figure out what she was saying, why she was saying it, and it was all written in this type of old English style, and literally I was trying to read her parts and my brain started hurting. And yeah, because otherwise at the start of this book it would have been a 3-star, but add that in there and the fact that Robin drove me insane, I dropped it to 2. I then tried the second book, Do You Take This Quest, which I also gave 2 stars. I did also finish it. Again, Robin's insufferable, and it just continues on their adventures. There's really nothing to say much about the book. There's going to be a wedding near the end. They're aiming to go to a wedding at the end. That's pretty much the whole book. Yeah, but the problem is Robin was in it. Then there was another character who showed up, and she was also insufferable. So it was like, oh great, now I've got 2 of them. And then in the second book, they kept the author flipped to people we had never met before, and we were in their heads most of the time. There was also a King Arthur element added into this book, which would have been interesting, but I just didn't care. And then there were like, I kid you not, at least 20 more people added in there, but none of them really had that much of a difference in personality that I could keep them apart, and it was too confusing for me. And I'm somebody who reads a lot of fantasy, and a lot of fantasy that has lots of characters in it, and I can generally keep them straight, and I cannot keep anyone straight in this series, and nor did I care to, because most of them drove me insane, or I just didn't care. So, after this book, I DNF'd the rest of the series. I have heard that the third book is when it starts getting good, but I did not care at that point. I like other books by this author, but not this series. I'm very sorry, but yeah, I just quit the series. It was too much for me, and I just didn't care. Okay, next 2 books I have to talk about are books 3 and 4 in the Legends of Abreia series. The third book is The Captive Throne. These are both by Kenley Davidson. The Captive Throne, we continue following Everine and Dandrick on their quest to free Everine's kingdom from the control of Dandrick's evil father, who is the main villain of this series, and things happen along the way. They run into these wraith-like creatures that are running around throughout Everine's kingdom, and they decide to track them down, but they're also trying to save the kingdom at the same time. There's not much more I can say about it because it's the third book in a series, but I was extremely confused why the wraiths were even there, because as of the end of book 4, they haven't shown back up. There doesn't seem to be any point to them. And yeah, The Captive Throne I gave 4 stars. It would have gotten 3 stars. Dandrick saved the book for me. I love that character. He has grown so much from the third book, or maybe it's the 4th and the 5th books in the series. I forget. Okay, The Captive Throne I believe is book 4, and the Uncrowned Prince is book 5. If I got that wrong earlier, I apologize. It's been a while since I read these. But anyways, back to the Captive Throne. Everine drove me nuts. She just kept doing the same stupid thing over and over again, and I was just like, girl, ugh. Dandrick saved the book. He is amazing. He has grown so much from the previous book. He is 100% a new character, and I adore him. He saved this whole story for me. Also, the first two characters, Lisa and her love interest from books 1 and 2, they came back into the story at this point, and I really liked their interactions together. The Wraiths made absolutely no sense. It was like, literally, okay, we have side quests now. Wraiths, go find Wraiths and kill them? I don't know, it really made no sense. And then, because they showed up at the end again, and the ending was so weird. It just ended. It was so abrupt. It made absolutely no sense. It's like, literally, they're all gonna, like, die, and then suddenly, poof! These people show up out of nowhere and save them, and I'm just like, who are they? And why are they important? It was really weird. It was a bad ending. Not to mention the romance dragged. Like, we're talking, it dragged, because these two did not know how to talk to each other. They could have just opened their mouths and spewed out some words, and hey, a lot of this would have been accomplished earlier in the book. Slow burn is fine. Angst is fine. People not communicating in a relationship for a small amount of time is fine. When you drag it on to almost 60% of the book, when you've already had to deal with this for one book and then most of a second book, it grows irritating. That was my problem with this romance, so yeah, didn't like it for that reason. Anyways, we're going to jump on to my favorite book of the series so far, and that is The Uncrowned Prince. In this one, we follow Prince Vanille. We have switched main characters again, because every 2 books we switch main characters. The other characters from the previous books show up in the other books, but they were not in their viewpoint. So, hope that clears that up. Anyways, we're following Prince Vanille. He is hiding out in a different kingdom. He's trying to find out ways to thwart his evil father, who is Dandrick's father, because Dandrick is his older brother. Clear that up. Anyways, and he runs across Abreia, I believe is how you say her name. That could be incorrect. I do not know. She is a assassin from the Empire, which most of the people of Abreia left like hundreds of years ago or something like that. The Empire is like on a different continent somewhere. Anyways, she is there for reasons that are more detailed as we go along, and she and Vanille end up teaming up together in order to find the answers that they both seek. And that's pretty much all I can say about that one. Like I said, that's like the 4th book in the series. I can't say much more, but it is my favorite because I love Vanille. He's amazing. I pegged it from book 1 that is like, there's more to this guy than we're seeing, and there is definitely more to this guy. He is amazing. He is really kind and caring. He also just like is like a spy, and he like knows how to fight. Like, he like take care of street kids, and he's just amazing, and I've adored him from book 1. So yeah, I really liked him here. Kogge is actually Lisa didn't annoy me, but I really liked her because Kogge is, the best way I can describe her is like if Rapunzel Entangled was locked in a tower but trained to be an assassin. That's exactly who Kogge is. She is like totally innocent about the whole world. She has like no idea how the real world works because she's like been living in this assassin school her whole life. And yeah, literally she has no idea, but she's like really good at killing people or like surveying things and stuff. And it's just a weird combination that she's just like this innocent person, but at the same time she will happily slit your throat. And it's really weird, but it works for her. And yeah, I really like these, at least I really like these characters, really like this book in particular. I'm very excited to see how the series ends. The last book, which is The Sundered Blade, actually comes out November 17th, which, when I'm filming this, is this week. So, you guys will probably see this video, who knows when, but it will be after this book is released. But yeah, I'm really excited to see where the story goes from here. Okay, I actually now have another book to hold up, so this is exciting. The next book I finished was Coral by Sarah Ella. This is a reimagining of The Little Mermaid. It is like part fantasy, part contemporary. In it, we follow three different characters. We follow Coral, who is a mermaid, and her sister, her older sister, is like depressed and stuff, and things happen, and I'm not sure, is that a spoiler? Okay. Basically, Coral has like this disease. She has emotions. And mermaids aren't supposed to have emotions. They're not supposed to have feelings. And her older sister had the same disease, and the red tide took her. So Coral's afraid that it's going to take her next. We also follow Brooke. She is a human teenager. She's in like rehab. She's in like this home place trying to get a new start on life, but she's just done. She's just like, I don't see any point in it, and it's just like has depression and anxiety, and she just sees no point in living anymore and stuff like that. And then we also follow Merrick. He is having issues with his very controlling father. He just wants to be free from his father. Also, his sister, his younger sister tried to commit suicide, and then that just upends his whole world. He thinks finding their mother who left will fix things, so yeah. He's trying to find his mother, and then all three of these characters, their worlds collide in this book. And this is a very hard-hitting, heavy book. It is a standalone. There are multiple trigger warnings for like depression, suicide, anxiety. There is a trigger warning page at the very beginning of the book. So if you're curious to see more of what she details, what could be triggers, I would recommend checking out that page and what other reviews have said about the triggers, including my own, where I think I list pretty much almost everything that she says in the trigger warnings, but I would say research it more if you think you may be triggered by this stuff. This is a very beautiful book. Sarah Ella has a very poetic type writing style, but also very grounded. And I'll be honest, this book was really hard for me to read as somebody with depression and kind of lower ends of anxiety. Sometimes I had to stop this book and read something else because it was just too heavy. It was just too much for me at the time, but it was also what I needed at the time. And I just really love the author's heart behind this, in her writing this, and just sharing these character stories, and the way the three characters start out and you're not quite sure how they're going to interweave together, and how they did. It was just really amazing, really powerful. I really love this book. It does have a happy ending. It is kind of bittersweet in some ways, but it does have one. I do want to point that out because, sometimes these books with heavier themes don't necessarily have happy endings, but this one does. It also just has a bittersweet tone to it, so just keep that in mind. But yeah, I really love this book. It's really hard for me to describe it, but yeah, it really touched me. It really helped me in a time when I needed it, and I highly recommend it. So yeah. Okay. All right, another book that I read was Lost in Averil by Tara Grace. This is like a younger YA middle grade. Oh no, flip that around. This would be like an older middle grade, younger YA story. It's supposedly first in a series. The author has not continued the series. I don't think she's going to. If she does, that would be great, but if she doesn't, it works as well as a standalone. And anyways, in this one we follow Amy. She is a normal teenager on Earth, but also she is the princess of Averil, which is a portal fantasy world that her father rules because he is from Averil, her mother is from Earth. They got married and they kind of just live two different lives in these two different places, that Amy has to keep a secret from people on Earth, and then she has to keep Earth as a secret from people in Averil. So she has like two separate lives, two separate names, two separate identities almost, and so she's been balancing that for years now, and until the problem is her crush Brett. He is working on a school project at her house, and he accidentally goes through the portal in their basement into Averil, and Amy now has a clock to get him back to Earth before he either starts a war in Averil because he's not supposed to be there, or he dies because being on Earth, he can't necessarily live in Averil very long because he's not of that world. So she joins up with her unicorn shape-shifting friend in order to find him in time before one of those two things happens. This was a very fun book, very creative. This is one of those series where I look, or one of these books where I look at it, like, Keeper of the Lost Cities is another one, where I just look at it and I'm like, the author was seriously very creative when they came up with this. The whole portal thing makes sense of why there's a portal and how that works. The differences between living in Averil and living on Earth, and just Amy's two different roles there. I really enjoyed it. It was very fun. I did get irritated a few times because Amy keeps reiterating why they need to hurry and go to certain places and get back to Earth and get Brett back to Earth and all that. And it kind of got annoying after a while, because it's just kind of like, girl, yeah, we get it by now. You need to get back. You don't need to keep repeating it over and over again. But yeah, and Brett, I thought, wasn't as developed as some of the other characters. He almost felt a little flat to me. I wish he had been developed a bit more. But yeah, overall, this is a very fun portal fantasy book. Like I said, you can read it as a standalone. It's clear from, like, the villain getting away and stuff like that, that it's like, okay, this is set up to be a series. But I don't know if the author's going to continue it, so it works well as a standalone as well, and I enjoyed it. Okay, the next few books I'm going to talk about, these are actually comics. These are Star Wars, the Clone Wars comics. I was in a really big Star Wars kick when I was reading all these. And two of them are rereads. One of them I read for the first time. The very first one I read is Crash Course. This is a comic where basically the Separatists have been getting inside information from somebody in the Republic, and they have this, like, certain information. They have, like, this chip, or I forget what they called it, but it's like this drive that has, like, sensitive information on it for the Republic. Like, I forget if it's for the Shipyards or the Army. It's for something for the Army of the Republic, and they don't want the Separatists to get a hold of it. So Anakin and Ahsoka are sent to track it down, and they track it down to this, like, hub of pod racing. So basically they have to go undercover to become pod racers, or like a pod racing crew, in order to find this chip and hopefully get it back before the Separatists get it. But their one issue is that Ahsoka will have to be the pod racing driver, and Ahsoka's never driven a pod race, pod ship. That's what it's called, I think. Pod racer. Yeah. Anyways, Ahsoka's never driven a pod racer before, so this could be interesting. This one I gave 4.5 stars. I love this one. This is a reread for me. I adore it just because it has that, if you've watched Star Wars The Clone Wars, you know that banter that Anakin and Ahsoka have throughout the whole series. It is here, like, 100%. Whoever wrote this knew these characters well. Also, Captain Rex, one of the clone troopers that is often in the series, he is there with them, along with R2-D2, and the whole group, they just work so well together, and I love it for their whole banter. It's just these characters, like, when I was reading it, I could clearly hear each of the characters, their voice actors, saying the lines. This comic feels very much like it was meant to be an episode in the series, and I kind of wish it was, because it's really good. The only problem I have with all three of these comics, actually, that I'm going to be talking about is the artwork. It's not that great. It's actually kind of weird looking. At one point, Rex looks like a mummy. That's his disguise. He looks like he's, like, wrapped as a mummy. I don't know why. So that was the only weird part, and like, all you can see are his two eyes, but they're glowing, so don't ask. It's really weird looking. But I enjoy it for the banter and the whole dynamic involved. Obi-Wan and Asajj Ventress even have their own parts where they appear briefly, and yeah, I really, really love this comic, and I do want to get a copy of this one in particular for myself, because I've read it twice now, and I would happily read it again. The next one I read was The Wind Riders of Taloran? I have no idea how to say that name. I gave this one 3 stars. Basically, in this one, let's see. what is this one about? Okay, in this one, Anakin, Obi-Wan, and Ahsoka have to go to this planet to, like, negotiate some kind of a trade deal or something like that, and they only are doing it because Ahsoka kind of botched up one of their previous negotiations, because she pretty much said that the people were lying because she could feel it through the Force, and it's like, she wasn't supposed to say that. So basically Yoda sends them on this mission for her to learn, plus also they need this alliance anyways. So, yeah, and things happen, and Ahsoka gets separated from Anakin and Obi-Wan, and they're both fighting their different battles, trying to get out of this whole negotiation gone wrong alive. This one I thought was really weird, mainly because, once again, with the good stuff, the dynamic between Anakin, Ahsoka, and Obi-Wan is top-notch. It is definitely like these characters, and that was pretty much the only part I enjoyed about this. The artwork is really weird in this one again. Some of the panels looks really strange. Like, one of the panels, it looks like when Obi-Wan's jumping down from a platform, he's gonna land on Ahsoka's head with her lightsaber drawn, so it's like, well, that's not gonna end well, but I don't know about the artwork. It's really weird. But I also thought it was odd that the Wind Riders, who are technically the title of this comic, technically only show up to be a convenient way to get Ahsoka out of the scene for a bit. And they really have no part in the story. It's really strange. I didn't care much for that one, aside from the dynamic between those three characters, which is always wonderful. But yeah, aside from that one, it was just fine. And the last one that I read, which was also reread, is Shipyards of Doom. This cover is awful. I mean, just look at that thing. It's hideous. I mean, Obi-Wan's the best one who looks the best on it, and that's not a compliment. Anyways, cover aside, I gave this one 3 stars as well. Mainly because, again, the dynamic between the characters, Rex is also included in this one, so it's Obi-Wan, Anakin, Ahsoka, Rex, and R2 as the main focus of cast. They are amazing as always. The banter and the dialogue and stuff, they get on point for each of these characters. That is the biggest good thing about this comic. This one, though, is really weird, because I remember I read this the very first time after I watched, in season 3 of the Clone Wars, there is a 3-part arc called The Citadel, where basically the Jedi have to go get another Jedi out of jail, that the Separatists have captured and all that. Anyways, this story, Shipyards of Doom, has the exact, almost same plot line of, like, how they get in. Even the tension between Anakin and Ahsoka is almost exactly the same. Yeah, it's pretty much almost exactly the same, and it makes me wonder which one was written first. Like, was this comic written first? Or were those episodes written first, and did one borrow stuff from the other? Because it's really very interesting. I do know the author of at least this comic. I think he is one of the people who made the show, so it makes sense that they're similar, but it was really weird, and I thought The Citadel did it much better than this comic, because, yeah, this comic wasn't that good, aside from the banter between all the characters. Pretty much everything else in Shipyards of Doom was just fine. They're sent into this really intense, like, blockaded, shipyard building where they're, like, the Separatists are building ships that they need for the war effort, and the Jedi are trying to stop them, is basically the whole plot. And then they come across, like, these slaves that Anakin and Obi-Wan try to free, and then they, like, don't want to be free at first, but then they change their mind really, really quick, and then decide they want to be free. It's really strange. Yeah, I didn't really care that much for this one, even upon reread. So yeah, there's that one, and it's hideous cover. Okay, the last book I'm going to be talking about today is the second book in a series, and that is Martin's Heir by Catherine McKee. Like I said, this is book 2 in the Martin's Mark series, and I don't know how much I can say about this one. Mainly because if I say anything, it's a spoiler for the first book, so I'm not going to go into great detail about what the book particularly is about. Basically, Alden and Shirlani are back in Shirlani's kingdom, and they're having to deal with stuff. Basically, like, aftermaths of them being captured by pirates and being missing for months, and Alden needs allies for something. That's all I'll say as about the plot. Compared to the very first book, this is really short. I was very shocked when I saw how short this is. But also considering that they don't really do a whole lot besides being around the castle, trying to get a feel for things of what's going on now that they're back, and back for Sherlani and her siblings, and then a new world for Alden and his brothers. This is very interesting. I gave it 4 stars, same as the first book, and I did enjoy this. This is more like around the castle, we're trying to get allies, we're trying to find out where our footing is and stuff, but the author does keep it very interesting. So yeah, prompts to her for that. I didn't like it as much as the first book because that's more like the survival, the adventure type thing, and this one was less of that. But yeah, this was more of an adventure on a more emotional, intellectual side of things rather than we're running around and the bad guys are trying to kill us side of things, which I prefer that side of things. But that's beside the point. But yeah, I still really enjoyed this book. I'm still looking forward to reading the 3rd book, which is currently the last book. There's supposed to be a 4th book, but I don't know when it's releasing. So yeah, still really enjoyed this, series, and yeah, I would recommend. And that is it. Those are all the books I read somewhat fairly, not really though, recently. So anyways, yeah, as you can see, a lot of them did not work for me. Yeah, it was very disappointing, and it's really thick and foggy out there. Wow, the fog is really thick out there. It's been foggy all day, but now it's like, we're like socked in. It's really interesting. Anyways, fog aside, yeah, unfortunately, I didn't really like a lot of these books, so it's like, I really had some that I adored, and then others it was just like, I would care to never see this book again. So yeah, whole range of different types of books, but yeah. Anyways, at least I got a lot of these off of either my want to read list or my ebook pile, which is out of control, but we're not here to talk about that. So anyways, let me know down below in the comments what you guys have been reading recently, or if you're interested in any of these books or just anything else you want to talk about. I always love hearing from you guys, and as always, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye!